What started out as a 1 day trip ended up turning into 5 because the more we were looking into the cities, the more we wanted to actually spend time in them. So I will probably be talking a little behind the photos, but try to keep up. So the first stop was York. We stopped to see the Barber Hotel from 1862. There's a landmark plaque from the Historical Society on the building. On the way to the next destination, we saw one of those silly wavy guys and thought it's a road trip. Let's see what's going on. It was a pot shop. We turned back around. And up next was Frogmore, and the closest I will ever get to Harry and Meghan, even though we share a wedding date, not year, but date. I think that means we should get to hang out, but nonetheless, I made it to Frogmore. It was a cute little town, and once I got my photo, we were off to Vienna. We were looking for the Edison Homestead plaque in Vienna, but we drove past it twice because it's tucked into a U shape of bushes. So once you know what you're looking for, you're good to go. In a nutshell, it states that Samuel Edison, Thomas Edison's grandfather, settles there in 1811, and rumor has it was his idea to name the town Vienna. More about his life is on the plaque if you wanted to go back and pause to read, or better yet, take a trip here to see it for yourself. Joys of a road trip, sometimes you just need to stretch your legs. So when we saw a sign that there was a lighthouse at the next exit, we turned off. Port Burwell, here we come. We pulled in, headed in the direction of the lighthouse, and right in front of us was a beautiful beach. If my bathing suit was easier to get at, I would have got in, regardless of being covered in sand the rest of the day. They did have bathrooms with an outside shower as well, though, so if you happen to be up this way, I highly recommend popping in. On our way around the loop, we noticed that they had a small marine museum, and so we went in, figured it was the best way to stretch our legs. For the amount of space and stuff that this place has, it was highly worth it for the day. And I really do recommend popping in if you are a history buff or a military museum or marine museum type of person. Before we left, I got one more look at the lighthouse. Then we headed down to see the HMCS Ojibwe. Sorry if that's pronounced incorrectly. They do tours a few times during the day, or at least they did when we were there. But we wanted to try to keep to our schedule, so we kept going. Next up was Copenhagen. I took a quick photo by the sign and then add to our much needed lunch. My husband forgot all about Mackey's until it was on a Canadian television show called Still Standing. It's a place he used to go with his grandfather, and as soon as he remembered about it, we knew we had to go, just had to find a time. This was the perfect time. They are locally famous for their orange drink and their Mackey's fry sauce. They have great hot dogs and burgers. Definitely check out the orange drink and the fry sauce when you go, though. First time we went, I got the small orange drink because I wasn't sure if I'd like it. Second time, I got the large. I don't know how to explain the fry sauce. I say just try it. It's fantastic, but my husband and I cannot agree on what we think the ingredients are. The last city on our first day is St. Thomas, also known as the Railway City. It might sound like a busy day, but we got started at breakfast time and we just had lunch. So the bulk of the day was done like morning and midday in the morning. So we headed to the city where we were going to spend the rest of the day and the evening. First up, of course, was the Elgin Military Museum. I have way more photos than you're seeing, but it gave a quick look to what we saw. If you're into military history, I highly recommend you check this place out when you're in the area. My husband said not enough about the Afghan War, but he says it about every museum. We opted for St. Thomas because their website was incredible with helping us find things to do. They have murals all over town, and they listed and addressed them along with photos so you can figure out exactly what you want to see and know how to find it. They also have a statue and a lot going on about Jumbo the elephant from P.T. Barnum's circus. When he was in town decades ago, he had an unfortunate railway accident and passed away in St. Thomas. And so to remember him and memorialize him, they have that huge Jumbo elephant that you can go take a picture with, as well as many murals around town. Railway City. So we spent the night in St. Thomas, great hotel, had a pool, wonderful, breakfast in the morning, even better. And then the next day we were on our way home, but taking a different route back, so we saw different towns again. First up is Sparta. When we were looking up stuff to do in some of the small towns, we would see what was in the surrounding areas, and that's what happened here. We were looking for something to do in Copenhagen, and actually we came across the Gailey Dairy Museum on two different websites, so I guess this is the closest thing that Copenhagen has. But it actually looked very intriguing because it's the sour cream and whipped cream and butter that we use in our home. So we figured, you know what, let's go check this out. We've got time. We had a great time. It's not very large, but it's definitely family friendly. They have tons of stuff to check out, kind of how the dairy farm started and where things are now. They've got like hands on stuff that the kids can try out. They've got ice cream available, walking trails. It was actually a great day, one time, a great way to spend the day. We were there for, I want to say, 2.5 hours. And as we were heading home, as you would have seen there, I was very excited to find out that we could find the Garden of Eden. There was a little garden underneath the Eden sign, so that made my day. I was very happy. We cut through a couple more small towns, ended up here in Scotland, and grabbed some stuff to take home. Gotta love a good farmer's market. So that kind of concludes our first weekend. And now we are heading off for a day. London, we easily could have hit during the last weekend that we went away. But because of all of the things that we wanted to do in London, it just didn't make sense. We figured we would do it as its own day. So my husband found, well, he knew about, but he found us a great hotel to stay at. And it's the Marriott that you see here. The external features used to be part of the London Armories. Many moons ago, it was changed into a hotel on the inside. So it's a beautiful hotel that you can stay in. Lots of history involved here. We had a great stay. But I absolutely loved looking at everything that they had that was originally from the armories that was in place. So we actually spent the London day as my birthday. So that's from that. So that I remember it in 20 years. So the first thing that we stopped at was the Labatt Baseball Diamond. This, as you saw earlier, received a Guinness World Record plaque, insignia, whatever the proper terminology is, for being the oldest still used baseball park. So we're not huge baseball fans, but we found that little piece of history was quite unique, and we figured since we're going to be here, we definitely wanted to stop in. So we walked around. All the outside has those bulletin boards up containing years of what has happened here over the course of time. Next up on our London tour, of course, is the RCR Museum. It's actually done on the London base, but you're able to get on, just let them know that you're heading to the museum, and there we go. So we definitely had to make this a stop, understandably, because my husband's a veteran. So we wanted to check in and see what they had going on. Now, I think for me going through this, I probably took 3 times the amount of time that he did because I was really checking out everything, reading all the little info plaques, checking out all the photos because I don't really know the history of really any of the wars. And because this was very unique to a specific group, I definitely didn't know a lot of the history. So it was very interesting for me going through and reading everything and checking out all the little exhibits like this one. So I actually had my husband hit the buttons for me 3 times so that I could really get a view of everything changing, and then I made him do it so that I could tape it. But I found it really interesting to see who took over what and at what point during the war. So if you don't know, that was actually really eye-opening for me. I feel like that would have been more helpful in high school instead of just giving me, textbooks. Something more visual like that would have gone a long way. I did try my hand at Morse code. It did not go well, but it took me 4 tries to almost spell out, this is hard. So I don't think I would have been very good in a more stressful situation. So I did take photos of all the listed fallen Canadian Armed Forces members here. So as this was just a one-day trip to London, that's really all we did was head up and then cut through some smaller towns on our way home, which, you know, we kind of made sure fit in with the road trip concept we were working on here. But when we were in London for my birthday, my husband handed in his medals to get remounted. That's the word I wanted, to get them remounted. And there was one thing that we wanted to do in London when we were there that was, there we are picking them up, that was actually closed because it's only open on Saturdays, and that's the London Music Hall of Fame. And so, because we went on a Saturday to pick up his medals again, we figured we would kind of add this as part two of our day trip to London so that we could check this out. It is an all roads lead to London type Hall of Fame. So it's people that were born in London. It's groups that toured and played. There's Kiss in London, and then just anything special that happened to people in music while they were in London. So it was very unique to see, you know, old prices and who used to play there and people when they were a lot younger, kind of before they made it, bands, things like that. And London has a ton of these like carved statues as you're driving through. I only wish that their website actually listed them so you'd know where to find them, but also that they were a little easier to find while you're driving. The last leg of this road trip was a weekend that we were doing right after we were up late the night before. So we were very exhausted heading out the next day as we headed into Cambridge. So a lot of the stuff that we were checking out in Cambridge was either off of their website, and it was the older buildings from decades, centuries, whatever it was ago, as well as stuff from The Handmaid's Tale. So we took everything from their website of the old buildings, and we looked at the stuff from The Handmaid's Tale, and we kind of made our own map to follow around so we could make sure we didn't have to double and triple back as we went around. We'd been here once before, or at least I had been here once before, but we didn't really pay attention to kind of the architecture and the buildings and everything else as we were going around the first time. It was actually a really pretty city, and if you get a chance to head out, you should do so. And just really drive around, check out the website, and see what all the buildings are. We saw the old fire hall and the original post office. I have no idea how I did that photo, by the way, but the original post office and things like that. It was really pretty, and they have the write up about the buildings as well, so you can check out the history of the town. We ended up coming across the Cambridge Fire Museum and Education Center purely by accident, and it's only open on Saturdays, so of course it was open when we got there. If you have kids interested in like becoming firefighters, I would suggest bringing them here. Although it's good for any age, I really feel like, you know, some 7 or 8 year old is just going to fall in love in there with everything that they had going on. Next stop we made was the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. Now I gotta say, it's not exactly what we were picturing. It was full of stuff, but it was not exactly what we thought it was going to be. It wasn't until we sort of got outside that we really saw what we were expecting, which was the legitimate farmers market side of things, not so much store fronts, which is kind of what the inside was. So the outside was fantastic, though. We spent a lot of time walking around and checking out the booths out there. Obviously not exactly a European city, but it was on our way, and people have talked about it before, so we definitely wanted to swing in. Next up, though, is lunch in Heidelberg. We found this restaurant online. It's over 100 years old, a German restaurant, obviously, and it was packed. We got there about 1:30, quarter to 2 in the afternoon, and we had to wait for seating, and that's not even normal lunchtime for people. So I have a feeling no matter when you're going, make sure you go with some time to wait because you're not going to be able to get a seat right away. Because we were going early October, we thought that we would gonna be seeing a lot of orange and red trees and everything changing color. But with the warm weather, no such luck. Everything is still pretty green as we go. But we were still able to get some really nice nature shots along the way. So, some of the European cities people have heard of before, Heidelberg and Cambridge and all that kind of stuff that we've already done. Southampton, probably not as popular or well known, but we know it because we like to cruise with Carnival and they have ships that leave out of Southampton. And so we figured this might be as close as we ever get to the big Southampton with the cruise ships, but at least we've made it to the town one way or another. So after our day out and about, mainly spent in Southampton, we headed into Walkerton to spend the night. It was a perfect kind of end to the first day because everything else is just going to start, I'm going to say going downhill, but you know what I mean. It's kind of like the tip of the loop, and then we're going to head back. So some places again had stuff to see, some didn't. We went through Belfast. There wasn't really anything. Brussels, it was just beautiful to look at, but nothing major for us to sort of get out and check in. That Cowboy Loft was on our list. It just wasn't open on Sundays, which is when we were heading back. So we may end up back there another time. But we cut through as many small towns as we could, anything that sounded familiar that we've known to add to our list. So we've seen these European tours come across Facebook saying European tour in Ontario, and it kind of highlights off all the little towns that you can go to. And when we started making our list, we realized that although we could shoot through everything in a day, maybe a weekend, if we actually wanted to see what the towns had to offer, we needed to cut it down a lot more. So that's why we turned it into this 5 day trip. You're able to see only a handful of the photos that I took as we did the tour. But we did the first 2 days with a night stay. Well, it ended up being 2 days in London, just as day trips. And then this last leg of the tour, which we did in the very beginning of October over the weekend, just to kind of pull it all together. We know that we want to go back to Stratford. There was so much to do, it would have needed a day on its own as well. And there's some other little things along the way that we definitely want to go back and see, as day trips here and there. But for the most part, we got to all the cities that we wanted to get to, or all the little towns that we wanted to get to. And it really was just a nice way to kind of spend time together and check out our province that we don't really spend a lot of time getting to see. So if you get a chance to do the road trip, definitely make one. I highly recommend it.